So India burst the baseball bubble and they win the series 3-1 with one match to go. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host Faris, and we have with us once again Vivek joining us from Gurgaon. Vivek,
Hi, Farid, everyone.
how's it going?
Very good, very good.
So
Thanks.
I think before I come to you, the last time India lost a series at home, the world stopped selling phone wasn't the iPhone. Barack Obama was in his first term as president. Zindagi Na Mili Dobara was the biggest Bollywood movie in the cinema. And guys like Quentin de Kock, Pujara, Shami, Ben Stokes, Butler, Root hadn't played for their country. That's how
Yeah.
much the world has changed since India lost a series at home. How do you look at that at this particular point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't even remember that. Has India lost a series at all?
Well, they lost in 2012 against England when Monty Panesar and
Ah,
Graham saw in 2012. That was the last time they lost series at home.
okay,
So,
got it, got it. Yeah, okay, understood. Yeah, it rarely happens.
yeah. And clearly, since I guess a lot of the current crew has been in place, it hasn't happened at all, right? But they've been, and I guess what's commendable is this also coincided with a time where they become increasingly dominant in test matches abroad as well, right? So like in the Kohli's captaincy and then so on and so forth from there. So incredible time. But I guess before we kick things off, I'll quickly do the short summary of the game. So England batted first. They were 110 for 5 on the first day, and then Root scored 100, and they get 50s by Foakes and Ollie Robinson. And England got to 350. India in response to 177 for 7, but somehow Jurel and Kuldeep got them out of trouble, and the lead was only 46 for England. England were 120 for 3, looking all right, and then they collapsed, lost 7 wickets to 25, and India's target was 192, which an 80-run partnership kind of killed off. So I guess starting at the beginning, this is an unusual game, Vivek, because it seems like unlike game 2 and 3, India were dominating pretty much throughout. But in this game, it seems like England probably seemed on top for more than India was, but somehow India finished on top again. Is that a fair assessment?
I thought it was a fascinating game. I mean, first of all, it was an amazing, amazing game of cricket. I think all the tests have been actually really good. I think the victory margin also doesn't really do justice to the drama that unfolded on every day. I mean, you look at this match, England won the toss, chose to bat, got in a bit of trouble. They were 112 for 5 at one point, right? And then Joe Root played a characteristic Root innings. He left his baseball thing. He wasn't reverse sweeping, the first 10 balls he faced. So I thought he played fantastically well, like how we've known him to. And he essentially carried the team, and there was the support with Ollie Robinson as well. And they did really well to get to 340 from there. So that was the first sort of comeback which they did.
True.
And
look,
then,
I think, go on.
No, and then I was saying India, like you pointed out, then they were, up and down, and then they were at one stage 177 for 7, and suddenly this kid, 22-year-old kid, Jurel, shows up, and I mean, most of us honestly didn't know he existed prior to the series, and been so good. I think he's really caused a problem now to the selectors, because at one point in time, Rishabh Pant will come back, and they'll have to have him. And then KS Bharat didn't do that badly, but now people are just going to forget that he even played.
I have a feeling we won't see KS Bharat play for India again.
Yeah, I think poor guy, he's gone. So the way Jurel has batted, I think he has scored a total of 120 odd runs in this match. And
got out only once, I believe.
One of those runs has directly made a difference. So
for sure.
Fantastic, right? But what a match. I mean, and then India, did really well to restrict that deficit to just about 40 runs or so. So kind of got back in the game.
Incredible test cricket. I think they've all been incredible tests, but I think this one probably was the best in terms of how often it swung.
Classic test match, brilliant, and then all types of bowlers were in the game. It wasn't a crazy spinning track. I think India did well not to create like those crazy tracks, I think, which were the case last time. So I thought the England spinners bowled exceptionally well. Bashir was so good.
And I think if you look at the selections the teams made also, right? So England left out Shoaib, they got in Shoaib Bashir, the off spinner, left out Rehan Ahmed. Now Rehan Ahmed is a leg spinner with a googly, not the most accurate bowler. And Shoaib Bashir, on the other hand, is incredibly accurate. No mystery about him, but he's an off spinner who knows where to land the ball. And England's view was this track will take a lot of turn. So the Shane Warne mindset is, you know what, the ball is spinning a lot. You don't need to ball the magic ball. You just need to ball the perfect regular ball, but land in the right spot, right? And so I think they got the selection really good. Firstly with Shoaib Bashir, where they got the accurate guy rather than the mystery guy. And it turned out to be a really good call for him. He got
Hartley is
8 wickets
also
in the
the
game.
the left-handed version of the same, right?
Yeah.
So they had both of these guys at both. It was hard, and India managed to do well there and reduce the deficit. Then England started off reasonably well, and then they had that collapse from 120 to 3. I mean, Ashwin was then suddenly he showed up very classy.
There's,
Off
it's
spinner.
funny, right? But in a 5-day game that ended a couple of days ago now, a lot of the stuff seems really far out, but there was a lot of intense periods on day 1 and day 2 as well, right? Incredible. But I guess going back to what you started off with, I think there were 3 main turning points, right? So on day 1, 110 for 5, England looked like they could be under 200 all out. That's where Root played that innings. I guess my first question would be, did he put Bazball away, or was he playing to the conditions? Because I think the other thing down the pitch was the ball was keeping really low. So it made sense not to sweep and reverse sweep. And the other factor also was a lot of those weird ramp shots he's actually played when Bumrah's been bowling and there's been no way out, right? So he's trying something different and he gets out. There was no Bumrah, so he didn't need to do that. So how did you look at Joe Root's approach to the innings?
I thought England overall played definitely in a different way. They played in a way which I think is right, which you adapt to the conditions and you bat. They didn't come with a preset agenda to just hit every ball out of the park, and it was difficult to bat on. In fact, there was this point where rather than lateral movement, it was more like vertical unpredictability and a lot of wickets.
So
on
putting the
both
strip
sides.
away made complete sense in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he did. He played really, really well.
Yeah.
Listen, the match could have gone either way.
Yeah.
After England collapsed, fine. There was only 192 to get India. Very strong start. 8 overs, 40 for no loss, and then started the next day. But if you thought that India were just gonna have a walk in the park, that didn't happen. There were wobbles. There was that moment where I think Jadeja hit that full toss and he to Bairstow.
I just want to come back to the first morning. India made a change, but it was a surprise for me. They got Akash Deep in the 11. Now, he wasn't even in the squad till 10 days ago, and he, I guess, leapfrogged Mukesh Kumar in the 11, but he clearly had a really good start to his test career as well. I think this has been the real side story. We'll look back at the series 10 years ago. It's probably when all these new Indian stars showed up in this series, right? But Akash Deep was really good. He got the first 3 wickets, I think, on day 1.
Yeah, no, he did really well. Good pace. And I mean, he was, I think, in 138 to 140 consistently. Line and length was good. Mukesh obviously didn't have a good outing, right? And I think I mentioned earlier as well, it was he was not so clear, and I am not so surprised they gave Akash Deep a chance. Glad they did, and obviously that was the first call that they got right.
And so again, we're coming back to what you're talking about in India's batting. So Jaiswal made 77, but really until Jurel showed up, it was at 177 for 7. It looked like they were 180 behind still. It looked like a lead, 100+ lead optimistically. But from there, that was the second turning point, right? Where Jurel and Kuldeep kind of had that 80-run partnership. And eventually, by the time they finished, it was a 46-run deficit only for India, right? And I think when you're playing in India, then essentially if the deficit's only under 50, it's not really, because you feel like India's local know-how is potentially enough in the game. How did you see that partnership? And again, you mentioned Jurel at the beginning.
40 runs, is not trivial if you think about the way this series has gone. The first test was lost by India by 28 runs. If you
after leading by 160.
Yeah, exactly. So that's still, I think England was still on top. But yes, from 177 for 7, all the recognized batsmen in, and you're relying on this new 22-year-old guy. This Jurel shows up. Kuldeep has been consistently batting well in this series. He's used as a night watchman as well. He has played very responsibly. I think he's really trying to cement his place in the side.
Because My memory of Kuldeep was a bit of a bunny with the bat, but that's more on the white ball side, right? For India and for KKR as well, he could barely score a run, but there seems to be have been a definite change in his
He
game.
batted for significant periods of time,
Yeah,
more than the runs that he has scored
yeah,
throughout this series. So I think
yeah,
he has made a big difference as well.
yeah.
So um,
At one point, Manjrekar described the sweep he played as the shot of the day, which is hard to think of, right? But that's
yeah,
just how, and 86 run partnership, and he kind of, I guess, without Kuldeep, Jurel could not have done what he did essentially in the
yeah,
first innings.
no. So Kuldeep was obviously massively important as well.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, they got that deficit down to, I think, psychologically crossing 300 and then
yeah,
getting that just with a 40 odd.
yeah,
Obviously, but still, England start with an
yeah.
advantage.
There
And
was
the
also a drop
matching
in there, so I
performance
think
was very tough.
Ollie Robinson dropped Jurel as well. There
Jurel,
was,
yeah. That was another moment which
yeah.
England will probably regret, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
happened.
And I guess so the third turning point was okay, fine. They lead a 46, and then England started batting. There was 120 for three, right? So at that point, leader 166, 110 for three, sorry. Leader 156, 7 wickets in hand. Crawley looking pretty good, right? And you think, okay, fine. And you're thinking at the moment, like 250 is really on the cards. And from there, Ashwin and Kuldeep just did what they do. To be
Yeah.
honest, they did what they generally do, but they haven't done in such a short amount of time in this series. But they chose the right moment to kind of, I guess, deliver the knockout punch. And they lost 7 wickets for 25 runs. It's
Yeah.
just
No,
unheard of.
Ashwin bowled, I mean, beautifully, right? I mean, like each and every ball. I saw the first part as well. He bowled the first over opening the innings. I mean, that first carom ball he bowled, and I think he was on song. He was brilliant. And Kuldeep has been bowling so consistently well. And Kuldeep has this very interesting way of release, and the loop on the ball keeps
Yeah,
changing. So when the bounce is a little bit unpredictable, even though you know which way is going to turn, he's still very difficult to
yeah,
play. So they bowled obviously really well.
yeah,
And yeah, when they were bundled out for 192 at that stage, the onus was heavily on India. But again, there was still
yeah.
another chapter there
And
before you can cross the
I have
line.
a question on England's batting, right? So, I mean, some section of the English media make it seem like because of baseball they lost, but the reality is A, no one wins in India. B, this is probably the strongest England showing I remember in 10 years. But also, if you think about it, in this particular game, they didn't really baseball it up, right? In the second innings,
No.
England scored at a 2.6 strike rate. So, if anything, there was a discussion happening where had they been a bit more aggressive and played a bit more how they normally do, and maybe had 50 more runs, who knows? It could have been a different game. So how do you look at that?
I think the two parts. I mean, the one part is see clearly the situation of the game and the conditions was something they had to respond to. So I felt they played according to that. What we don't know sitting here is that maybe it weighed on them and they were under pressure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because they're down in the series and I mean the previous match, the mauling of 400 by 434
yeah,
runs obviously doesn't help. So maybe that factor also played in. But I feel it's still more the conditions.
yeah,
And I think uh, they played well. I mean, I
yeah,
don't think you can fault too much. Like I said, I
yeah,
think it was a fantastic game. Could
yeah.
have gone either way.
Yeah, and this is a point Ravi Shastri made on commentary. But when England came out to bat, they opened the bowling with both the spinners. Now, England spinners have barely played any first-class cricket and probably never ever bowled with a new ball. So I think they were probably struggling to land it in the right spot, which really, and I think Jaiswal and Rohit really took advantage of it. So they were at 40 for no loss on the at stumps, and they had an 80-run opening partnership. So I think that partnership effectively killed off any chance England had of, I guess, of a fight, making a match out of it.
Almost, but yeah. So like I said, but they had a good start.
Yeah,
They survived the 8 overs on the first day. Not only that, they scored at 5 runs and
yeah.
over, 40 for no loss. But then on the second day, after Jaiswal gets out, Rohit Sharma gets
Yeah.
stumped. Patidar has not been having a great outing.
Yeah.
And then Sarfraz is like misses a few, can't get off the. He's gone. Jadeja hits a full toss and it goes all the way to Bairstow. So then you're thinking, shit. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they thought that, oh my God,
Yeah.
maybe this is
No,
it.
no.
And
I
on
was
the other
getting
end,
messages on my phone saying game on, tune in, something's happening, right? So it was
yeah,
building up
exactly.
to
And
that moment.
Shubman Gill was not playing super
Yeah,
fluently. He
yeah,
was not exactly reading the ball off the pitch. So it was really hard. And again, it was just this guy Jurel who came
yeah,
and
yeah,
made the game suddenly look very easy. It was one of those things, 50 runs or 60 runs to get with 5 wickets in hand at that point of time looked like a lot.
and
And
also India was scoring really slowly as well, right? So it wasn't like they were 5 overs away from a win. It was more like they were 15 to 20 overs away from a win, given the
yeah.
run rate they were scoring at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, obviously they knew that when you have only 50, 60 runs
yeah,
to get you, it's about really staying for the first 30, 35 of them.
yeah,
Then the rest will finally
yeah,
be okay. They knew that he played, but again, it was Jurel whose presence then created the momentum. They were rotating
yeah,
the strike. Shubman Gill also started playing some more fluent strokes, and then they comfortably made it in the end. But
yeah,
like I said, if it wasn't that easy,
yeah,
if they had lost one and Jurel didn't show up, I mean,
yeah,
it could have gone the other
yeah,
way, and it
yeah.
would have been very, very close.
I think the real story, like I said, from this series for me, and maybe what we'll remember this for, is the number of new stars India has kind of pulled out,
Yeah,
right? So I mean, I won't call Jaiswal new, but he's still new, right? He
he
debuted
is.
6 months
Yeah,
ago. So I mean, he looks like the senior guy on the side. But there's
yeah.
Jaiswal, there is Sarfaraz, then there is this Akash Deep guy, and then there's Jurel. I mean, there's so many debutants and so on they play, which I
And
think
and uh, and unfortunately, it didn't work for Mukesh and KS Bharat, but
yeah.
otherwise they were also in.
If
So
anything,
no,
like I
I
said,
think
this
what's
we won't see Bharat again.
yeah, poor guy. But I think no, that's the most remarkable thing, right? Like you had this series. See, anyways, there is still this little pall of gloom after the World Cup loss. So
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of time for that to heal. That's number one. Then you don't have Kohli. Then you don't have, anyways, we are used to it. You don't have your ideal test 11
Yeah.
because Pant got injured and all that. Rahul is not there. Bumrah decides to rest this match because of the most important tournament in the world is coming up, which is the IPL. And
and,
so
and
all
there's the
of
World Cup after the most important tournament.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So that I think it's the IPL,
yeah, of course.
the most important tournament for these guys. So they can't afford to miss that. And with all of that, I think it's amazing. It's really a testament to the bench strength in India. These are not just players who came off the IPL.
Yeah,
Okay, IPL is going on, so India can always have a factory of T20 players. This is not that, right? You're getting proper test quality
yeah.
batsmen. And there are people in here who are not there for no fault of their own. There's a batsman, Hanuma Vihari, for
Yes,
instance.
of course.
There are all these guys. So I think it bodes very well for the team, and especially as we're entering this transition phase, probably are in this transition
Yeah,
phase post the T20 World Cup. I think mostly, I guess that'll be it
yeah,
for Rohit,
yeah,
Virat, and all these guys. So it's great. So I think that
uh,
momentum is super
yeah.
super positive.
Just a word on England and baseball. So I think George Dobell mentioned this, but he said it's really annoying how every single thing England does becomes a referendum on baseball. If they do
Yeah.
well, baseball is awesome. If they don't do well, but
No,
I think
but
the
that
fact
they're
remains
doing.
that this is a. I think they
Yeah.
played some incredible cricket, one of the best visiting teams I can remember in India in a long time. And I
Yeah.
think the way they're playing is certainly suiting them. I think it can perhaps do with a bit of tempering, and you can always fine tune what you do. But I feel like it's been overall a pretty strong showing from England, and I feel like I expect them to. So this is, by the way, the first series loss for England since Ben Stokes and Baz McCullum took over. Before that, England had won one test in 17 in the last before they took over, right? So clearly, the fact that you're losing the first series after 2 years is a testament to how well they've been overall. And I feel like they're probably moving in the right direction, and you probably expect them to win more series going forward.
Oh, no,
But
I
how
think
do you
they're
look at England?
absolutely moving in the right direction. I think this baseball metaphor and pressure is something they have put on themselves
To
because
be
they
honest, they've
call
never
it
used
out.
the words baseball. The media does. They never use it. But yeah, they talk about how
Really,
they
they
play.
never
Yeah.
said it. Ah, okay.
No.
But they've done this right to
Yeah.
themselves by making this statement that regardless the situation, we're going to play like this, we're going to
Yeah.
do that. I think that they have created that, drawn that attention to themselves. But nevertheless, I think they played super well. See, for a visiting team, it's hard in India.
Yeah.
But if you break these 4 tests by sessions, I didn't do that, and you see who won what session, I think it would probably be, like 60-40 or something,
Yeah.
towards India. So
If
it
anything,
is
I
very
feel
good.
like England was more dominant in this game than they were in the first game, which they won. That's the funny
Yeah,
thing, right?
the first game, honestly, India fell 28 runs short while chasing. I think it was 220 or something like that.
And they had a 160 lead, right? So like Ollie Pope scored that big
Yeah,
knock and they came from that. So they were
but even
essentially
then,
ahead most of the game.
honestly, India should have chased a 200
Yeah,
plus
yeah, yeah, yeah,
run thing. But whatever, they fell short, and then the rest. But no, it was a great series, and I think more than again anything else, fantastic advertisement for Test
yeah,
cricket. It's great to see. You've got all these new venues, right? So like matches in Ranchi and
yeah,
Visakhapatnam. So obviously there is some
yeah,
bigger plan in spreading the game out beyond
yeah,
just the key
yeah.
metro cities.
Which India has
And,
been very good at, to be honest, over the last
yeah,
couple of decades, I would say.
and for test matches, you're seeing great crowds in
Yeah.
there.
So
It was
speaking of
great.
spreading, right? Just sharing a little comparison. So in the '96 World Cup, I know a lot of our listeners, viewers weren't born then, but in the '96 World Cup, from memory, India and Pakistan got 16, 17 games each. Pakistan hosted 16 games in 5 cities, and India hosted 17 games in 16 cities. They
Yeah.
actually built 5 new stadiums using the pretext of the World Cup. And I think I guess, this is the kind of thinking which kind of down the road should gives results for you, right? Because you have 16 world-class
Oh, and
centers
there are
across the country.
stadiums now which were not in that 16.
Yeah, yeah,
This Dharamshala, Ranchi,
yeah,
Vizag, they were not even
yeah,
there at that
yeah,
time. So, no, I mean, I think that's not a fair comparison.
yeah.
India's a much bigger
I mean,
country.
bigger
So,
country. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Also, by the way,
but
do you know something else? So the last time a 5-test series went to a decider was 29 years ago. So I was really hoping England could win this game and we could
yeah,
go in after 29 years for the fifth
yeah, I
test.
would
It's
have
a
been
decider of a
fun
series.
in a different
Yeah,
way, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. In a way, that's a bit sad, I guess, that
yeah,
it's such a fantastic series which has ebbed and flowed
yeah,
both ways, and the fifth test is gonna be like a write-off.
yeah.
So
And
whichever way,
I don't
yeah,
think anyone's playing Test cricket in the next 4 months in the world, to be honest, because I feel like it's going to be IPL
yeah,
and Pakistan has some other series, and then there's the World T20 World Cup coming up, and so on and
yeah.
so forth. So a lot of white ball stuff again.
But a lot of great test cricket in the last 3 months. I mean,
Yeah.
if you go back to the West Indies Australia series
Yes.
also,
Yeah.
and no, I mean, there's really really good
Yeah.
stuff, and I think it's
So
very heartening to see that.
yeah. So the next test starts in Dharamsala I think on the 8th. So still about a week away. The forecast for day one is actually 4 degrees and sleet overnight. So let's see how that plays out. But this could be weather that perhaps suits England way more than a lot of the Indian players.
Could
Well,
be.
Dharamsala is still a bit cold there. Before we wrap up for the day, Vivek, India today announced the central contract lists. I'm not sure if you came across the news.
I
And
did
they've
not.
actually left out Ishan Kishan and Shreyas Iyer from the list. It
Oh,
has
okay.
something to do with the fact that they opted not to play a Ranji game, I believe, for their domestic side. So I think it seems like it's non-cricket cricket. But there was a statement out from Jay Shah last week, right, where talking about how we encourage all the players to prioritize their domestic Ranji trophy and so on and so forth. So, and I think these guys are perhaps training with the IPL team, something like that. So it seems like India is trying to make sure the balance remains, but it was definitely a big decision, got headlines that these two have been left
I
out.
missed that, I guess, instead of other things.
Yeah,
But yeah, there were some disciplinary, there was something around Ishan Kishan a little bit earlier as
yeah,
well. Again, it's unfair to say, I don't know if there was just noise made
mm,
around it or something came out. But so it's, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not
yeah.
surprised. And
But
these guys, see, honestly, the balance of power a bit is with the administration, right? Because now there's so many options to choose from.
yeah. I
So
mean, in a weird way, I feel like the Indian players have less options because they can only play the IPL. I mean, I know it's the most lucrative league, but if you know what, like players from West Indies can if they have a fight with the board, they can go up play 4 more leagues. The
yeah,
Indian
yeah.
players don't typically do that. So, but again, I guess the league is so lucrative that works, but then they can't really be on the wrong side of the BCCI. I guess that's the power dynamic
No,
there.
but that's all, yeah, politics, right? Why the
Yeah,
BCCI does not let the Indian players play elsewhere
Yeah.
and just
I mean,
hope
it's
with
politics and economics, right? Because that's how IPL stays the Premier League, right?
yeah, it's because of
Yeah.
economics. Therefore, they use
Yes.
politics. Because if you had Indian players playing everywhere, then you have every league becomes like
Yeah. Yeah.
a global league. And then suddenly, obviously, with Indian players, I mean, imagine Virat Kohli is playing in, I don't know, PSL or the CPL, and
And
then
like
suddenly you have
there's this
simultaneous
ILT20
people
happening in the
watching there.
UAE. They have the same team brands as the IPL. They have the same owners, but no one really. I don't think it's got any following in India because there's no players. The second you take the players there, it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
No one really cares if Dubai Capitals is playing, right? It's like Delhi Capitals. But if you had Rishabh Pant playing there or like someone playing there, that changes the game completely. So
The problem, and I guess and I'm saying this in a very unbiased way, right? Like the BCCI, because cricket's viewership is so skewed to India, that 90 or 95% of the viewership and hence the
yeah,
monetization comes from India. Yeah, unfortunately, I guess the BCCI gets to play its own game. Now, on the flip side, I guess, you can also say that, there was an England era initially, then there was the Australia era with World Series and Kerry Packer and all,
yeah,
and now it's the India era. So
yeah.
maybe it's fine. But
Let's see.
then
Let's see how long it lasts. Yeah,
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 it's just a question. But the BCCI is going to make sure that
yeah.
it's
They
there for
milk
a
it.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah, because now it's all about eyeballs and monetization, right?
yeah,
And then money has come, so the infrastructure is good,
yeah,
tournaments,
yeah.
all that stuff is there. So, anyways,
Okay, good
BCCI.
stuff, Vivek. Thank you for being on once
Yeah.
again. And for those of you watching, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back talking about the series after the fifth test. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.